Hey guys, I hope you're having a really good Monday. So today we are moving on with exponentials and we're going to talk about some word problems. So our goal today is to be able to take a word problem and write the equation that models what the word problem is, the situation that the word problem is giving us. So I've got an assignment for you to practice, but before we get there, I'll go over a couple of these too. I'm going to go over some examples with you to kind of so we can kind of see what is it talking about? What is it wanting us to do? We're not actually calculating anything. We just are trying to, we're just trying to write the equation. So if you go back to your notes from earlier last week, well, in the last week on Thursday, when we introduced exponential equations, we said this is the formula that we use. Y is equal to A times B to the X. So that's going to write. So A, we said was our y-intercept. And we also said in the notes that A is your starting value. And then B is the base. We also can think of it as the rate. So B and A. We're still, remember when we were on Friday, we were doing the activity, we were identifying A and B. We're still doing the same thing, but now we're going to do it from a word problem. Okay, so here's an example. Nadia owns a chain of fast food restaurants that began with 200 stores. So you see right here, they're telling us she had 200 stores when she began. The rate, of increase is 8% annually. Okay, so we want to write our equation. So I'm going to use the information I've been given. It's going to be a y equals equation. So how much how is her stores growing? They're growing exponentially. When it says it's increasing with a rate, that is your clue that this is exponential increase here. Like her chain of stores are growing really fast. So you always start off by putting your A value. That's your starting value here. So she started with 200 stores. Now in parentheses, we got to figure out what's the rate. How is it changing? And then X is always part of it. So X is, remember, that's the deal with exponentials. Your X is the exponent. So now the starting value is usually really easy to find. You put it in front, that's your A value. Now we have to figure out the rate. Well, they told us right here that it was increasing at a rate of 8%. Now remember, we don't ever use the percent sign in equations and formulas. We want to change it to a decimal. So if you can't remember how to do that, you could take 8 in your calculator and divide it by 100. That's the same thing as 0.08. So there's our rate right there. So it's increasing 8%. But now let's think about this. Let's say I'm going to multiply 200 by 0.08. And that will tell me how many stores, since she's increasing annually, how many stores she has after 1 year. So I want to show you why this doesn't make sense. Because if I go to my calculator here real quick, let me see if I can get it to pull up. Okay, so with this equation that we've written here, do this, see if I can get it. If we put in 0.08, well, that's saying 200. So we'll say after 1 year, we would have 0.08. Remember, her stores are growing. She's getting more stores. And I put after 1 year, because X is the years, that's where you put your time. So if my exponent is after 1 year, she started with 200 stores and she's increasing at a rate of 8%. How many stores does she have after 1 year? See, this says she only has 16 stores. That doesn't make sense because they told us it was increasing. Do you see that? You see how it said it's increasing? So when you put your rate here, you have to remember, if it's increasing, you're going to have to add it to 1 because she's going to have 100% of her stores that she started with plus 8% more. So really our rate that needs to go here is 1.08. So we needed to add 1 to it because this one is increasing. Now, if it's decreasing, what do you think you're going to do instead of adding it to 1? Yeah, you're going to have to subtract it from 1. So this value here, your rate, you're either going to have to add it to 1 or subtract it from 1 for every time. Okay, so there's that one. Let's look at another example here. We have a company, a clown at your party. They purchased a van to drive for parties for $20,000. So that's how much the van was worth. That's what they bought it for. The value of the van depreciates, so that's important. Do you know what the word depreciate means? it means it decreases in value at a rate of 9% each year. So every year the van's worth less 9% of its original value. Okay, so remember, we're going to write our equation here. We're going to do A, that's our starting value, times our rate, our base, and put it to the power of X. Okay, so our starting value is 20,000. That's how much the van started being worth. Okay, now we have to figure out our rate, and we're going to raise it to the power of X. Okay, so here, I know since it's depreciating, again, if I multiply by the 0.09, because I know 9%, so remember, you have to take your percent, convert it to a decimal. So I know that if I put in 0.09% and I multiply it times that 20,000, that would tell me after the first year, this van's not going to be worth very much money. So it shouldn't make sense. But if I go, okay, well, if it's losing 9% each year, if it was worth 100% the year you bought it, the next year it's losing 9% a year, well, what's 1 minus 9%? Should be 0.91. That makes sense, right? It's worth 100% when you first buy the thing. And then after 1 year, it's already lost 9% of its value. So it only has 91% of its value left. So that's the number that we need to put in for our base here. 0.91. So that's our rate. Okay, so we've written our equations. That's the two pieces you have to figure out, the rate and the starting value. Now let me show you how I have set up your practice. We come over here, say take the quiz, but it's really just some practice problems, not like a quiz grade. So here's your loan of $5,000. It gets half paid off each year. So you have to think, when you answer, what does it start at? Well, 5,000, right? That's how much you owed at the beginning. How much is it changing by? Well, this one says it's getting paid off how much each year? Half. Okay, that's 1/2, or remember, we want to think decimals. That's 0.5%. Okay, so now we need to write our equation. The A value goes here. That's 5,000. And we put our rate here, and I've already put the X for the exponent. So your rate is, well, what's 1 minus 0.5? Well, 1 minus a half is still a half because it's getting paid off, right? It's your value on your loan. When you took out the loan, you owed 5,000, but the next year you don't owe 5,000. You owe half of it because they're paying off half each year. So it's decreasing. This one's decreasing. This one's kind of strange. I'll help you with this one. The wise man asked for 1 grain of rice today and double each day that follows. So what does it start at? How much rice does he have when he starts out? He has 1 grain. What's it changing by? Well, double. So how do you think double? When you think double, what do you think? Hopefully you're thinking I would multiply by, if I say I have $5 and I've doubled my money, you would go, you have $10, Ms. Robinson. Yeah, so how did you get from 5 to 10? You had to multiply by 2. So we're actually saying when the question says it's doubled, well, you had 100%. The next year, if it doubled, you've got 200%. So if you take 200% and change it, it's changing by 2. Well, so I start with 1. And so I don't have to convert this to a decimal. 2 is the same thing as 200%, right? So we can just put the 2 in for this rate because that means doubles. Because 200% change to a decimal is 200 divided by 100. Then that's how you go from your decimal to percent to decimal is 2. Okay, so I want you to go through and see if you can figure out the rest of them. So we have licorice, you're giving your starting value, and then this one should be similar to one I've already worked. And then I worked an example like this too, with when it gives you the percent. Okay, so these are talking about double and halving, or they give you a percent. So that should cover all of them and kind of let you see like and I know like there's an 8 is missing. I did it on purpose. It goes to 9 here. I took out question 8 because it was kind of weird. So you only have 7 left to work on your own now, or 6 actually, because I only gave you 8. So work through those and I will take a grade on this. So make sure you hit submit when you're finished.